My name is Will, and I am the last man alive in New York City. 3 years ago, scientists genetically modified the measles virus to create a cancer vaccine, and at first it looked like a miracle. 10,000 cancer patients were cured, and the world celebrated. But no one knew that this experiment would turn into a nightmare. The virus mutated and spread through the air across the world, wiping out almost 90% of humanity, and the people who survived didn't stay human. They turned into terrifying creatures called dark seekers or zombies, strong, fast, and thirsty for blood. I was lucky. I was immune. I used to be a virologist in the army. It means a man who studied viruses, so I knew their weakness. Sunlight burns their skin, so they only come out at night. That's why I only go outside during the day and lock myself inside before sunset, spraying bleach around my house so they can't smell me. My wife and daughter died when the world collapsed, and now I live with my dog Sam, hunting deer and surviving in a city that feels completely dead, full of abandoned cars and silent streets. Every day, I work in my basement lab, using my immune blood to make a serum and testing it on infected rats, hoping to find a cure that can turn the dark seekers back into human. Most experiments failed, but one rat actually started to heal, and for the first time in years, I felt hope. Every afternoon, I go to the seaport and send a radio message, hoping someone else is alive. My name is Will. I'm a survivor in New York. If anyone can hear me, I can give you food, shelter, and safety. I'll be here every day. But no one has ever answered. One day, while hunting a deer with Sam, the animal ran into a dark building and Sam chased it inside. I knew dark seekers hide in dark places during the day, but Sam is like my son, so I followed him in with my flash, my heart pound. Then I heard it, a deep, terrifying growl. I froze, realizing a dark seeker was close. And for a moment, I thought about turning back, but I couldn't leave Sam behind. I couldn't leave Sam there to die. So I forced myself to move forward, every step heavy with fear. And that's when I noticed the mouth of a dead animal lying in the corner. And for a terrifying second, I was sure it was Sam. My heart sinking so hard, it felt like it stopped. But when I realized it was only the deer, my legs almost gave out in relief. And I gathered what little courage I had left and kept going. And when I pushed open another room and slowly aimed my flashlight inside, the sight froze the air in my lung. Dozens of dark seekers were standing there in a tight group, silent and still, like monsters waiting to wake up. And instinctively, I covered the light with my hands shaking, and by pure luck, they were facing the wall, unaware of me. So I backed away quietly and slipped into the next room, where I finally spotted Sam hiding under a table, trembling, his eyes locked on the dark. And when I tried to pull him out, he wouldn't move, like he sensed something I couldn't see. And the moment the light hit that shadow, a dark seeker exploded out and rushed me with a horrifying scream. And I barely had time to react before I emptied my gun into it, grabbed Sam, and ran. But the echo of gunfire turned the whole building alive, and the dark seekers came after us fast and furious. And I yelled for Sam to run through a small opening, while one of them grabbed me from behind, forcing me to smash through a window and fall into the street, where the sunlight instantly burned the creature's skin and killed it. And even though we escaped, I stayed because I needed one of them alive for my serum. So I laid a trap using a dead dark seeker, black cloth, and my own blood as bait. And it worked when one of them got caught, though its partner couldn't cross into the sunlight and just stared at me with pure hatred before retreating. And I took the captured one, a female dark seeker with a butterfly tattoo, back to my lab and injected the vaccine with hope shaking in my hands. But nothing changed, and my heart broke again as I recorded another video log explaining how animals weren't affected through the air, which was why Sam was still okay, at least for now. And the next day I followed my routine, sent my radio message, and on my way back saw a mannequin standing in the middle of the road, something I knew I hadn't put there. And the moment I stepped closer, a trap snapped shut, lifting me upside down and knocking me unconscious. And when I woke up, the sun was almost gone, and Sam was barking wildly, and I barely managed to cut myself free, stabbing my own leg in the process, dragging myself toward my car as the light disappeared. And then a dark seeker came out with 3 infected dogs, unleashing them on me. And Sam saved my life twice, but he got bitten, and I rushed him to the lab, injected the vaccine, held him like my son, begging him to stay, but it didn't work. And as he began to turn, I ended his suffering with tears in my eyes, buried him the next morning, and that night, fueled by grief and rage, I went to the seaport with a plan, using using a dummy as bait while I waited in my car, and when the dark seekers charged, I turned on the headlights and drove straight into them, but their strength and numbers overwhelmed me, and in that moment, I knew this world had finally taken everything from me. They flipped my car completely upside down, metal screaming as it hit the ground, and I was trapped inside, bleeding and barely conscious, every breath hurting, and before I could even think of escaping, a dark seeker crawled through the broken window and dragged itself toward me, its face twisted with hunger, and I knew there was no way I was getting out alive. But suddenly, a powerful white light flooded the street, so bright it burned my eyes, and the dark seeker screamed and ran, and all around me, the others scattered back into the darkness. And the next thing I knew, someone was pulling me out of the wreck, shouting at me to stay awake, and when I could finally focus, I saw a young woman behind the wheel of another car, asking me where I lived, and with broken words, I gave her my address and warned her that my house wasn't safe at night because the dark seekers knew my location, telling her to wait until morning, and then everything went black. And when I woke up again, sunlight was pouring into my house and my leg was stitched up, clean and bandaged, and for a moment I thought I was dreaming until I heard movement in the kitchen and grabbed my gun, limping forward, only to see the same woman standing there with a small boy beside her, and something in their faces made me lower my weapon. And when I asked who they were, she told me her name was Anna and the boy was Ethan, and they had come all the way from Maryland after hearing my radio message saying they had reached the seaport yesterday and waited for me all day. And then she told me they were heading to Vermont, where a safe zone existed in the mountains full of survivors living without fear, and that made something snap inside me. And I told her harshly that there were no safe zones left and no survivors anywhere, but she didn't argue. She just said the virus couldn't survive extreme cold and that people were safe there, and I walked away angry. But later, when my head cleared, I apologized and asked how she had stayed alive, and she told me she and Ethan had hidden on a cargo ship with other immune people until the dark seekers attacked and slaughtered everyone else, and now reaching the safe zone was all they had left. But I told her I wasn't leaving New York because this was my city and my responsibility was to find a cure. And later, when we checked the trap that had caught me, I realized something terrifying. The dark seekers weren't mindless anymore. They were learning, planning, evolving. And as we sat near a pool watching Ethan play and complain about how cold the water was, my mind suddenly lit up, and I rushed to my lab, lowered the body temperature of the female dark seeker with the butterfly tattoo, and injected my vaccine again, hoping the cold would weaken the virus enough for it to work. And Anna stood silently as she saw the walls covered in photos of dark seekers I had captured and lost during testing. And that night, as I sealed the house before dark, Anna asked me one last time to come with them, saying God had guided her to my radio message and saved my life, but her words struck deep, and all the pain, loss, and anger poured out of me as I told her there was no God left in this world, no divine plan, only what we choose to fight for in the darkness. This was our fault, I said aloud, because humans created this disaster, and if humanity was ever going to survive, then we had to be brave enough to fix our own mistake. But before I could say anything more, I heard violent crashing sounds outside, metal and glass breaking, and my chest tightened with fear as I asked Anna if it had been nighttime when she brought me back here, and when she admitted that I was bleeding too badly and she had no choice, my heart sank because I instantly knew the truth. The dark seekers had followed us, and now they knew exactly where I lived, and when I looked out through a narrow window, I saw them in the distance, dozens of dark seekers sprinting straight toward my house like a living wave, and Anna immediately ran to Ethan's room while I activated the massive floodlights around the house, hoping the light would stop them, but they didn't hesitate for even a second and smashed the lights apart like pain meant nothing to them, forcing me to grab the remote and trigger the explosives hidden inside the parked cars surrounding my home. And the explosions tore through the night, ripping hundreds of dark seekers apart. But the shockwaves also weakened my doors and walls, and knowing the house wouldn't hold much longer, I rushed upstairs with Anna and Thin, only to see a dark seeker already inside, ripping open the ceiling to make a path for the others, while Anna and Thin hid under a cabinet, shaking in terror. And when Ethan let out a terrified scream, the creature charged at them, leaving me no choice but to grab a gun from the desk and kill it. But when I glanced out the window again, my hope vanished as I saw even more dark seekers coming, led by the same one who had watched me trap their kind before, clearly their leader. And realizing we were were about to be overrun, I took Anna and Ethan down into my basement lab and sealed the doors. And that's when we saw it, the impossible. The vaccine was actually working. Female Dark Seeker with the butterfly tattoo was healing, her body stabilizing, but before we could even process it, the Dark Seekers smashed through the basement entrance and surrounded the glass chamber where we were hiding, slamming into it again and again. And I begged them to listen, shouting that I could cure them, that I could help them, but they ignored me completely until their leader stepped forward and cracked the glass with his skull, stopping only to trace the shape of a butterfly on the glass. And in that moment, everything became clear to me. They weren't here to kill us. They were here for her, and my hands started shaking as I lowered my gun, removed the medical equipment keeping her stable, and told Anna to open the door. And though she was terrified and confused, she trusted me, did it, and I handed the female Dark Seeker back to them, waking her with an injection. And when she opened her eyes, the leader showed unmistakable affection, and that single moment shattered everything I believed, because I finally understood that the Dark Seekers weren't mindless monsters. They could think, feel love, rage, loyalty, and mercy, living together like families, a new branch of human evolution. And in their eyes, I was the real monster, the one kidnapping and killing their people in the name of a cure. And the weight of that realization crushed me as I apologized to them with my whole heart, and they spared my life, leaving with their own. And when the house finally fell silent, I knew my mission had changed forever. So I left New York with Anna and Ethan, heading toward Vermont, hoping there really were survivors out there.